What up? This is your boy D. I'm the hip hop Republican, and I just heard a little bit of President Trump's comments about Paul Manafort getting his whatever revoked or getting locked up, whatever it was. And he mentioned Bob Dole and Ronald Reagan that Paul Manafort had worked for. I'm on the chapter Gerald Ford versus Ronald Reagan, and I'm reading this because politics is so fake and boring these days. So let's read some more of Gerald Ford and Ronald Reagan from 1976. But if Reagan wanted to be vice president, he did virtually nothing to help his chances and a great deal to douse them once he arrived in Kansas City. During a lunch for key supporters at the Haubeck Hotel, Reagan heard that some Californians were starting a draft Reagan for vice president movement. Reagan whipped out a felt tip pen and scribbled, "To my friends in California delegation, I have learned of your concern about whether I would or would not accept the nomination for vice president on the Ford ticket if he should be nominated for president. I thought I had made this clear. Evidently I hadn't. Here is my reply, as plainly as I can say it. There is no circumstance whatsoever under which I would accept the nomination for vice president. That is absolutely final." Reagan gave the note to his brother, Moon, and told him to deliver it. Moon replied, "How are they going to know it's from you?" And so Reagan took the note back and scribbled his signature at the bottom of the page. Several dozen copies were made and distributed to Reagan, floor leaders, and delegation chiefs to quell doubters. Reagan wasn't closing the door, he was slamming it. That night, by prearrangement, Ford called on Reagan in his hotel suite. The visit had been worked out days before by their aides. To preserve party unity, both camps agreed that the winner would visit the suite of the loser and then appear in a joint press conference afterward. Reagan's aides had insisted on one ground rule for the meeting. Ford could not, under any circumstances, offer Reagan the vice presidency. Reagan's staff said they wanted to spare Ford the embarrassment of having Reagan turn it down. But what they didn't say was that they didn't want to create any circumstances where Ford's folks might later claim that Reagan was not interested in party unity. And so no offer was made or expected. "Governor, it was a great fight," Ford said. "You've done a tremendous job. I just wish I had some of your talents and your tremendous organization." That was from President Ford to Governor Ronald Reagan in 1976. After posing for photographs, Ford dismissed the press and then asked Reagan to huddle privately. "Ron," Ford then asked, "who do you recommend that I select for vice president?" This was, in Ford's retelling, at least one last dangle at a final chance for Reagan to volunteer. Ford insisted later that he phrased the question in such an open-ended way to somehow get confirmation myself that he didn't want to be on the ticket. If so, Reagan declined debate. The two men instead discussed a number of candidates: William Ruckelshaus, Richardson, Baker, Conley. Reagan spoke most favorably that day of Bob Dole. President Trump mentioned Bob Dole today in West Virginia when they asked him about the Paul Manafort verdict. Even this was according to the script. Dole had asked Northinger earlier in the day if Reagan might put in a good word for him in the event Reagan truly didn't want the job of vice presidency on the ticket of Gerald Ford in 1976. And then after asking Reagan to campaign in the fall, I hope Ford plead, "You are going to be able to help us." Ford left. Reagan, who had been subdued throughout the entire session, said he wanted to rest and make some money, but would campaign in the fall. The dream ticket, if that's what it might have been, was not to be. So President Trump mentioned Bob Dole and Ronald Reagan today in West Virginia and said that Paul Manafort had worked for them. And this is your boy Darius, the hip hop Republican. Have a good evening.